The Gobi Desert stretches endlessly, waves of sand glinting under a sun that never relents. The wind whispers secrets older than memory. Soviet scouts arrived in 1955, notebooks in hand, cameras strapped across their chests. Their mission seemed simple: map, mineral deposits, record the terrain. But whispers from local nomads hinted at dangers that could not be charted. Animals vanished inexplicably. Camels found lifeless, punctured in ways no known predator could. The scouts' eyes widened at every ripple across the dunes. A shadow shifted, but no one was there. Footprints appeared overnight, enormous, winding, disappearing into the sand. Scouts traced them with trembling fingers, each step a mystery. Field cameras captured nothing, yet diaries described movement beneath the dunes. A note reads, "Tracks end where sand begins. Fate unknown. Nights brought tremors. Subtle but palpable. Instruments recorded anomalies, yet nothing could explain the rhythm beneath their feet." Nomads muttered about a creature called Algoi Korkoi, feared, revered, almost supernatural. Legends spoke of a worm-like beast, hundreds of meters long, its body thick and undulating, burrowing silently, hunting with deadly precision, spitting venom, scorching its victims from a distance. Yet no concrete evidence existed, only sightings, whispered warnings, and the eerie footprints left behind. Scouts wrote of heat signatures beneath the sand, a sensation of movement, an invisible presence following them. Their hearts pounded in the cold desert nights. They slept with one eye open. A scout's diary entry reads, "We saw the sand shift, a ripple like water, then silence. Nothing remained." They doubted their own eyes, yet others confirmed the phenomenon. Cameras failed, compasses spun. The desert seemed alive, aware, almost sentient. Even the wind carried ominous tones. Nights were punctuated by cries, distant, unidentifiable, chilling. Nomads claimed the creature could sense fear, their stories tinged with reverence and terror. Soviet officers dismissed some reports, but filed others as anomalous occurrences. By day, the desert was deceivingly calm. Golden dunes, serene and endless. Yet scouts found evidence of struggle. Sand-disturbed rocks shifted unnaturally. Camels missing tents shredded. Shadows moved against the sun, vanishing at a glance. Instruments recorded heat and pressure changes. Yet no creature could be identified. The nomads warned, "Do not provoke the sands. It watches. It waits." Scouts felt eyes on them, an unseen observer tracking every move. Their notebooks grew heavier with each entry. One evening, a scout reported a scream, distant, inhuman, echoed across the ridges. Instruments recorded vibrations. The desert trembled. No one knew the source. Their cameras captured only empty sand. Footprints appeared nearby, enormous and sinuous. Some scouts swore they saw a red tail vanish beneath the dunes. Others doubted their senses, yet fear settled deep. The Algoi Korkoi was no longer a legend. It was a possibility. Night after night, sleep became impossible. Scouts marked locations on maps where tremors were strongest. Heat anomalies fluctuated, a presence beneath their feet. Nomads recounted similar experiences for generations. Fires left smoldering with no logical cause. Shadows that moved independently. Some scouts began to whisper, sharing fragments of dreams, vivid and terrifying. Visions of a colossal worm rising from the sands, striking, disappearing. They began questioning reality. What was myth and what was truth? A particular diary entry notes, "It watched us. Every camp, every trek. The sand rippled beneath our feet. Our instruments betrayed nothing, yet we knew it was there. The scouts' nerves frayed. Conversations were hushed, cautious. Fear became a constant companion. Nomads spoke of venomous spittle, of heat-sensing eyes, of deaths foretold before they occurred. Camps were abandoned at sunrise. Tents left intact, yet men vanished. It was as if the desert itself chose who would survive. By mid-expedition, morale plummeted. The Algoi Khorkhoi became a shadow over every step. Maps annotated with cryptic warnings, scribbles of unseen movement. Tracks end. Disappearances. Tremors. Instruments failed mysteriously. Compasses spun, radios cracked. One scout wrote, "We are not alone. The desert holds secrets older than empires. It tests us. We are intruders." Fear and fascination entwined. The line between legend and fact blurred. Nomads guided scouts with caution, pointing out ridges where creatures were said to appear. Whispered warnings carried more weight than orders. Some scouts refused to camp at certain dunes. Others pressed on, driven by duty and curiosity. At night, they heard sand shift in patterns, rhythmic, deliberate. The desert seemed to breathe, to pulse. Scouts recorded heat anomalies, pressure spikes, yet cameras captured nothing. The Algoi Khorkhoi remained unseen, but undeniably present. Strange injuries appeared on camels and scouts alike. Puncture wounds, scorched sand on blankets, nights filled with unexplainable sounds. Some saw silhouettes rising briefly, vast, undulating, then gone. Journals noted coincidences. The sand trembled before each incident, whispers in the wind, visions in the mind's eye. Nomads spoke of an ancient curse, an ancient sentinel beneath the dunes. Soviet intelligence took note. Classified files grew, and the mystery deepened. The first week of the expedition ended, but the desert had only begun to reveal its secrets. Shadows stretched unnaturally. Footprints appeared overnight. Tremors persisted. Scouts questioned reality, faith, and reason. The Algoi Khorkhoi hovered between myth and recorded observation. The desert kept its vigil, watching, waiting. The creature unseen but tangible set the tone for what was to come. And so begins the story, where legend and fact collide, and the sands of the Gobi hold whispers older than human memory. The year was 1955. The Cold War was at its peak. Soviet intelligence sought to map every corner of the Gobi Desert. Mineral surveys, geological expeditions, and scientific studies masked a deeper curiosity. Teams of scouts and geologists moved in small units, their notebooks filled with coordinates, temperature readings, and anomalous observations. Nomads had long warned outsiders of the desert's hidden perils. Tales of Algoi Khorkhoi whispered around campfires, dismissed as superstition by some but noted in official files. Scouts recorded unusual sand disturbances, patterns too deliberate to be natural, footprints of impossible proportions, wide and sinuous, stretching for kilometers, ending abruptly as if the creature had vanished into the ground itself. Daily life in the desert was harsh. Scorching days, freezing nights. Dehydration and sandstorms were constant threats. Yet the scouts noted phenomena that defied natural explanation. Camels vanished without trace. Footprints circled their camps. Some tents bore deep gouges in the canvas, yet no predator was observed. Instruments malfunctioned inexplicably. Compasses spun. Cameras failed at critical moments. One scout wrote, "The desert hides its own logic. We are observers in a place older than time." Nomads shared their own knowledge. Elders described the worm's behavior. It burrows beneath the sand, sensing heat and vibration. spits venom deadly enough to kill livestock instantly. Some spoke of its length over 10 meters. Others claimed sightings of even larger sizes. Shamanic warnings accompanied these accounts. Spirits of the desert protecting or punishing those who intrude. Scouts recorded the words, wary but intrigued. Every report was cross-referenced with Soviet intelligence files, creating a pattern of unexplained phenomena. Field diaries reveal a growing sense of unease. A scout wrote, "Tracks appear where none should. Sand is disturbed without wind. Nights filled with tremors beneath our feet." Heat signatures were recorded sporadically, rising in one location, vanishing in another. Some nights scouts heard distant cries, hollow and inhuman, echoing across ridges. The team grew divided. Some believed in the Algoi Korkoi. Others considered it a product of fatigue and stress. Yet the evidence persisted. Anomalies repeated patterns undeniable. The scouts' reports detail encounters that seem to defy logic. A camel found dead with precise puncture marks in its chest. Another animal missing entirely. Tents shredded from within. Sand scoured clean in the shape of coils or ripples. Observers noted a shimmer across dunes like liquid beneath the surface. Movements too fast and deliberate for any known animal. Files noted these occurrences as anomalous desert phenomena, subject to further investigation. Soviet command grew increasingly concerned. Maps drawn by the scouts became maps of mystery. Points marked unexplained disturbance. Tracks end abruptly. Anomalous heat readings. Nomads guided teams cautiously, warning them against certain ridges and valleys. Scouts recorded these warnings verbatim. Their respect for local knowledge grew. Some nights they followed tracks hoping to catch a glimpse, only to find the sand smooth again, as if the desert itself had swallowed all evidence. Heat-sensing instruments occasionally registered spikes, unexplained by environmental conditions. Nocturnal patrols reported tremors beneath their feet. Whispers carried on the wind. Journals note feelings of being watched, a presence beneath the sand. Scouts began questioning whether the Algoi Korkoi was a creature or something beyond comprehension. The desert seemed to play with perception, bending reality. Each day blurred into the next, the line between myth and observation fading. One official report reads, "Subject observed a sand ripple, approximately 3 meters in length, vanished before camera deployment. Eyewitness testimony consistent across 2 patrols. Nomadic accounts corroborate presence in area for generations. The language is cautious, almost fearful. Soviet intelligence cataloged every anomaly, yet no definitive evidence could be captured. The creature's existence remained unproven, yet undeniable. Several diaries describe nights of terror, tremors moving in rhythm, shadows appearing without source, camels braying in panic, instruments failing simultaneously, scouts experiencing vertigo and nausea. All reported a feeling of being tracked, of unseen eyes beneath the desert surface. Heat anomalies coincided with these events, creating a sense of presence, as if the Algoi Korkoi were aware of human intrusion. The desert itself became a character, alive and reactive. Dunes shifting mysteriously, wind patterns altering, sand forming unnatural mounds, shadows stretching against the moonlight. Scouts began noting patterns, tremors, heat spikes, vanishings, all pointing to a single elusive source. Local legends gave shape to these events, but the files recorded them with a clinical eye, a fusion of folklore and official observation. Scouts noted an increasing psychological toll. Sleep became fragmented. Paranoia spread. Whispers of the worm haunted dreams. Fatigue amplified fear. The desert amplified every sound, every shadow. Every anomaly became a warning, Yet curiosity drove them forward. Reports mention anomalous tracks circling camps, sand displaced in unnatural shapes, fleeting heat signatures. The team remains under high alert. Command stressed the importance of continued observation. Some nomads claimed the Algoi Korkoi was an ancient sentinel, older than human settlement, the desert's guardian, punishing or protecting as it saw fit. Scouts documented these tales, noting their consistency across tribes and regions. Even skeptics acknowledged the uncanny alignment between folklore and field observations. Tremors, vanishings, puncture wounds, heat signatures, all echoed the legends whispered for generations. The line between myth and fact blurred further. By the end of their first month, the scouts had gathered extensive documentation. Maps, diaries, heat readings, sketches, photographs. Yet the Algoi Korkoi remained unseen. Every report hinted at intelligence, deliberate movement, predatory behavior. Yet it remained intangible, invisible. Some nights patrols returned shaken, claiming glimpses of something vast beneath the sand. Others dismissed it as exhaustion, but the repetition of phenomena could not be ignored. The desert kept its secrets close, waiting for the next expedition. The nomads spoke in hushed tones, around flickering campfires, of the Algoi Korkoi, their voices trembling, yet steady. Each tribe's story varied, yet certain details remained consistent. A long, sinuous body, a red or scarlet hue, the ability to sense heat, to spit venom with deadly precision. They claimed it could kill instantly. Animals, humans, any living creature foolish enough to cross its path. Scouts recorded these tales verbatim, aware that local knowledge might hold truths beyond comprehension. Shamans described the worm as a sentinel, a guardian of the desert, ancient and eternal. It did not hunt for sport, but punished intrusion. Those who disrespected the sands or ventured too far without permission vanished, leaving no trace. Nomads claimed that at night, the desert itself would pulse beneath their feet, sand shifting unnaturally, forming patterns, like warning signs etched in the earth. Scouts noted these alignments, comparing them with the anomalies they had already documented. Some elders spoke of the hum beneath the sand, a vibration felt rather than heard, a warning to heed the desert's boundaries. When scouts experienced tremors, the nomads nodded knowingly. The same signs had appeared for centuries. Stories recounted travelers swallowed by sand, their screams echoing across ridges, their bodies never recovered. Only scorched earth, disturbed dunes, footprints that began and ended without explanation. The lines between legend and memory blurred, and the scouts could not ignore the consistency of these reports. Campfires at night became moments of shared unease. Shadows danced unnaturally. The wind carried whispers. Scouts swore they saw shapes in the dunes, flickering, moving, then gone. One diary entry reads, "The sand shifted. I felt it watching. Every heartbeat seemed audible. Our instruments betrayed nothing. Yet fear is tangible. Instruments failed again. Radios crackled. Compasses spun. Cameras captured nothing. But the scouts' fear was real. They began to speak less, observe more, and write everything meticulously. The folklore described not only the creature, but its habits, emerging only under certain conditions, after sandstorms, during the coldest nights. When prey approached, it could sense heat, vibrations, even thoughts, they claimed. Scouts tested the dunes, observing temperature anomalies, tremors, footprints forming and vanishing. They could not confirm the creature's existence, Yet the folklore and field data seemed aligned. The desert had patterns, and the patterns were dangerous. Every story carried motifs of disappearance, predation, the unseen hand of the desert. Travelers and shepherds disappeared for days, sometimes weeks, only to reappear with delirious tales, claiming glimpses of a giant worm, or hearing the sands whisper their name. Sometimes they returned dead, or not at all. Files compiled by Soviet scouts contain references to these events, cross-referenced with local reports, creating a disturbing correlation. The legend had teeth, and the scouts felt them. Bridge reports connected these motifs across time and space. Siberian deserts, Mongolian steppes, similar phenomena recorded. Tremors, vanishings, massive footprints, sometimes described as snake-like, sometimes worm-like. The Algoy Korkoi was not unique. The desert seemed to produce these sentinels repeatedly. Soviet intelligence noted uncanny similarities, patterns emerging from the folklore, corroborated by field anomalies. The motif persisted, a sentinel beneath shifting sands, waiting, watching. A scout recorded a story from a nomad. It sleeps, or hides, but never leaves. It waits for the foolish, the careless, the unworthy. The scout added his own observations: footprints circling tents, tremors during the night, camels missing in the morning. Another diary entry. We saw the sand ripple, as if something moved beneath. The wind shifted unnaturally. I felt eyes, though none were visible. These accounts blurred the line. Folklore informing observation, observation reinforcing folklore. The desert itself became a character in the story, alive, responsive, unpredictable. Scouts noted repeated heat anomalies, tremors forming patterns, footprints beginning and ending abruptly, nocturnal sounds, cries, echoes that seemed unnatural. Nomads explained these as signs of the Algoy Korkoi's presence, the desert testing intruders. Scouts began to see the links between tremors, folklore, and the anomalies they had recorded in their instruments. Every night, a new puzzle. Every morning, a fresh uncertainty. Fear and fascination intertwined. Scouts were torn between duty and survival, curiosity and terror. Folklore became guidance. Warnings became protocols. The desert seemed to demand respect. The worm's legend became a lens through which every anomaly was interpreted. Heat spikes, tremors, disappearances, all explained by centuries of whispered warnings. Yet each scout also documented anomalies that folklore could not account for. The desert held more than legend. It held evidence of the unexplained. Some nights brought visions, fragments of dream and reality merging. Scouts wrote of red shadows beneath dunes, undulating shapes, shapes that vanished before cameras could capture. Others described hearing sand shift in deliberate patterns, rhythmic, intelligent. A nomad once said, "It moves beneath the earth, alive, knowing." Scouts could only write these words down, their pens shaking. Their field notebooks became artifacts, recording the interplay between legend and observation. They began to understand. The desert itself was a living witness. By the end of this phase, scouts had amassed a troubling collection. Maps, diaries, sketches, heat readings, eyewitness reports. The Algoy Korkoi remained unseen, yet its presence was palpable. Folklore and fact layer intertwined, each reinforcing the other. Every tremor, every footprint, every whispered story built a mosaic of terror, a desert alive with secrets. The scouts knew their expedition was only beginning. The desert had revealed patterns, but not its ultimate truth. Nomads insisted that the desert held guardians, ancient sentinels older than the oldest settlements. They called it Algoi Korkoi, the Mongolian Death Worm. Whispered warnings passed down through generations. Around flickering campfires, elders told stories of travelers lost to the sands, disappearing without a trace, sometimes found days later, lifeless, sometimes never found, leaving only disturbed dunes and strange, sinuous tracks. Some claimed the worm could sense fear, its presence detected by the trembling of the sand, or the panicked beating of hearts. They spoke of its hunting habits, emerging after sandstorms, moving beneath the dunes, silent, deadly. Reports described it as more than a predator, a creature with intelligence, aware of intruders. Some elders claimed it could anticipate movement, detect footsteps before they reached the dune's crest. Nomads remembered centuries of unexplained vanishings, attributing them to the worm's deliberate strikes. Scouts recorded these accounts, their pens trembling, aware that local knowledge might hold truths far beyond their understanding. The folklore described its venom, lethal, potent enough to kill camels and livestock instantly. Some tales spoke of humans struck down with a single spittle, leaving burn marks on skin, scorched sand around the corpse. Other stories detailed the worm's size, colossal, stretching dozens of meters, undulating beneath the surface, impossible to see, only felt. The scouts began to compare these accounts with heat anomalies, tremors, footprints, strange injuries. A pattern emerged, folklore and observation intertwined. Shamans recounted omens, signs of the worm's approach, sudden silence in the wind, animals refusing to move, sand shifting in unnatural ripples. Nomads followed rituals, prayers to appease or ward off the sentinel, fires left smoldering where none should burn, shadows moving independently of their source. Scouts noted these events in their diaries, acknowledging the alignment between supernatural warnings and physical anomalies. A tremor might precede a disappearance. A ripple might coincide with a missing camel. Elders spoke of the worm's behavior across seasons, during the coldest nights, after sandstorms, when prey entered its territory. They described intelligence, patience, cunning. It could wait for hours beneath the dunes, stalking silently, observing, waiting, then striking, leaving no evidence, only footprints, heat anomalies, disturbed sand. Soviet scouts began to see correlations. The folklore provided patterns to anticipate anomalies, yet the creature remained unseen. Legends also included psychological warnings. Those who mocked or disrespected the desert were targeted. Intruders vanished, leaving others alive, terrified, forever altered. Nightmares haunted travelers, vivid visions of red shapes moving beneath the sand, whispers in the wind carrying names. Some scouts reported experiencing dreams that mirrored nomadic tales, as if the desert itself had planted them. Folklore and personal experience began to merge, a collective consciousness forming around the Algoi Korkoi. Certain patterns repeated across regions. Siberia, Mongolia, the Gobi's expanse. Similar reports of enormous undulating creatures beneath sand and soil. Tremors, sudden vanishings, animal deaths with strange punctures. Nomads confirmed these motifs, each story reinforcing another. Soviet files cross-referenced these accounts. The alignment was striking. The creature's legend was not idle. It carried predictive weight, guiding scouts' understanding and their fear. Some accounts described the worm's interactions with humans, rarely seen, but unmistakable in impact. Hunters and travelers spoke of tracks encircling camps, footprints forming vanishing then reappearing elsewhere, sudden tremors preceding vanishings, nocturnal sounds, cries, echoing across ridges. The folklore painted it as intelligent, purposeful, aware. It was a sentinel, a predator, and a myth, simultaneously. The scouts' diaries reflected this duality, fact and legend entwined. Elders also spoke of protective rituals, offerings placed in the sand, prayers whispered at dawn, small acts to appease or distract the worm. Some claimed these rituals saved lives or deterred attacks. Scouts noted the consistency across tribes, across decades. The desert seemed alive, responding to both human presence and ritual. Folklore became a framework, a guide to interpreting anomalies, tremors, heat, vanishings, all part of a pattern too consistent to ignore. Stories described the worm's emergence, sudden, violent, rippling through sand. A shadow glimpsed fleetingly. Some claimed glowing red scales. Others described the shimmering of heat. It struck quickly, then vanished beneath the dunes, leaving fear, destruction, and unanswered questions. Scouts compared these accounts with heat anomalies and tremors. Every documented event mirrored aspects of the legend. Folklore and observation reinforced each other. The desert became a stage. The worm an unseen actor. Nomads warned of the psychological toll. Fear invites mistakes. Those who do not respect the desert become lost, delirious. Some never return. Scouts began to record their own experiences. Night terrors, hallucinations, visions of undulating red shapes beneath sand. Dreams mirrored folklore. Footsteps on the dunes when none existed. Whispers in the wind carrying names. The desert's influence seeped into minds, blurring reality and legend. Fear became a tool of the Algoi Khorkhoi. By the end of this phase, the scouts had collected an extensive tapestry of folklore. Heat readings, tremor records, maps, and diaries. Every legend aligned disturbingly well with anomalies. Each disappearance, tremor, and footprint mirrored nomadic accounts. The Algoi Khorkhoi remained unseen, yet its presence was palpable. The desert held secrets older than the expedition, patterns older than recorded history. Folklore and fact had become inseparable, and the scouts realized they were only beginning to understand the desert's true nature. As the scouts pushed deeper into the Gobi, the desert revealed patterns, tremors beneath the sand, heat anomalies rising unpredictably, footprints appearing and vanishing in impossible arcs. The Algoi Khorkhoi became more than a legend. It was a motif, a recurring sentinel across centuries. Similar reports echoed from Siberian deserts, remote steppes, isolated oases, the same signature massive undulating tracks, vanishings, nocturnal cries. The desert seemed to speak in a language older than any map or measurement. Nomads spoke of generations lost, hunters, shepherds, travelers, all claimed swallowed by the sands, sometimes leaving partial evidence. A stray hoof, a scorched patch of sand, footprints beginning abruptly ending without trace. Scouts compared these with Soviet expedition logs, tremors coinciding with disappearances, heat anomalies preceding sightings. It was as if the Algoi Khorkhoi existed both in legend and in the data they meticulously recorded. The bridge between folklore and fact became undeniable. Elders' stories mirrored observations, repeated motifs across regions. The creature was said to respond to intrusion, deliberate, intelligent, almost ritualistic. Sand shifting before trespassers approached, animals fleeing before they could perceive danger, nights filled with tremors, whispers of unseen presence. Scouts recorded these parallels in meticulous detail, each anomaly reinforcing the legend. the legend justifying the anomaly. Certain motifs became central. The worm as a desert sentinel, its attacks following patterns, vanishings at twilight, tremors at night, sudden deaths of livestock, shadows flickering along dunes. These patterns were repeated in diaries, logs, and nomadic stories. Soviet files cross-referenced decades of observations, anomalies catalogued, patterns mapped. Yet the creature itself remained unseen, its presence inferred, felt, almost sentient. Scout diaries described linking events: tremor here, disappearance there, footprints forming in circles, heat spikes preceding vanishings. The desert acted as both stage and actor. The Algoi-Khorkhoi motif spanned time, centuries of accounts, suggesting a phenomenon that transcended a single expedition. Legends of similar creatures in neighboring regions hinted at a recurring sentinel, each with slight variations, yet all shared a signature: disappearance, tremor, fear, and inexplicable evidence. The scouts began to analyze nomadic warnings, each cautionary tale aligned with observed anomalies. Some hills were consistently dangerous, valleys avoided by locals for generations. These locations coincided with tremor clusters, heat anomalies, and vanishings. It became evident that folklore contained patterns, predictive value, not mere superstition, but accumulated observation, encoded in oral history, passed down as warnings. Scouts realized the desert itself preserved memory. Cross-cultural parallels emerged. Siberian accounts of large burrowing creatures, sudden vanishings, tremors, folklore detailing behavior almost identical to the Algoi-Khorkhoi. Heat-sensitive attacks, predatory precision, footprints appearing and disappearing. Soviet analysts noted the recurrence: a desert motif, a sentinel appearing in multiple locations across decades. The desert produced its guardians. The Algoi-Khorkhoi was one manifestation. Some scout diaries recount attempts to follow disturbances, tracking footprints, noting heat anomalies, observing tremors. Yet the creature eluded them. The pattern-repeated approach vanish anomaly left behind. It was intelligent, aware. The desert itself seemed to conspire. Each expedition deepened the motif, reinforcing folklore with observation, observation strengthening folklore, a cyclical pattern, as if the desert demanded recognition of its hidden order. Connections between past and present accounts formed a mosaic. Tremors, vanishings, footprints, repeated across space and time. Nomadic knowledge confirming anomalies. Soviet field reports corroborating legends. Scouts recorded each alignment. Maps annotated with warnings. Notes cross-referenced. Shadows at night. Strange cries. Heat anomalies. The motif was undeniable. The Algoi-Khorkhoi existed as both legend and recurring phenomenon. The bridge became a warning. The desert, a living archive. Each anomaly a message. The worm's presence inferred from patterns, motifs repeating like echoes. Observations across decades hinted at intelligence, purpose, survival, and perhaps judgment. Scouts began to understand that the desert was alive in narrative, folklore and fact intertwined. Each tremor, each disappearance, each whisper in the wind formed part of a larger repeating design. By mid-expedition, scouts could no longer separate fact from legend. Every anomaly resonated with centuries of warnings. Each tremor mirrored a story told around nomadic fires. Every vanished camel reflected a tale of the past. The motif of the Algoi-Khorkhoi had become a lens through which all observations were filtered. Fear and fascination intertwined. The desert's patterns became guidance. the unseen sentinel its master. The bridge between history, folklore, and present observation complete. The bridge extended beyond geography, beyond time. Siberian deserts, Mongolian steppes, even anecdotal reports from neighboring regions. All shared tremor signatures, sudden vanishings, massive undulating tracks. Folklore explained, observation confirmed. The Algoi-Khorkhoi motif emerged as a sentinel of the sands, a bridge between myth and reality. The desert watched. Patterns persisted. The legend endured. And the scouts realized the true challenge was understanding the motif itself. By the third week of the expedition, tension had grown unbearable. Nights were longer, colder. Shadows stretched unnaturally. Tremors pulsed beneath the sand like heartbeat echoes. Scouts reported hearing whispers carried by the wind. Names called out. Urgent. Haunting. Their instruments recorded spikes. Heat anomalies. Unexplained vibrations. Yet cameras captured only empty dunes. A barren landscape hiding impossible truths. One diary reads, "We saw it. Or we thought we did. A ripple across the sand. Vast. Undulating. Red as dried blood. Then vanished. No trace. Our eyes deceive us. Our minds betray us." Panic crept into the team. Whispers of hallucinations, fatigue, desert madness. Yet the pattern persisted. Footprints, tremors, vanishings, repeated, undeniable. Scouts began to fear that the desert itself conspired against them. A sudden scream shattered the night, distant, chilling, piercing the still air. Camels stamped and bolted. Tents flapped violently. Instruments went haywire. The scouts ran toward the source, only to find nothing. Sand had shifted. Footprints circled the camp, then disappeared. A scorched patch of earth marked where the scream had ended. Smoke rising, but no fire. The Algoi-Khorkhoi's presence was felt, not seen. Journal entries became frantic. Tracks circle the camp. The sand pulses beneath our feet. Shadows flicker where none should exist. The wind carries cries. We cannot sleep. We cannot rest. Cameras failed repeatedly. Compasses spun. Radios emitted static. The team questioned their senses. Yet tremors, heat spikes, vanishings remained. A pattern, deliberate, intelligent. It was hunting, observing, testing. A scout reported seeing a shadow rise, massive, undulating, like the ridges of the desert itself moving, then gone. Nothing remained. Footprints ended abruptly. Sand returned smooth. The desert was alive with silence, oppressive, and the Algoi-Khorkhoi had left its mark. Not on film, not on paper, but in fear, in memory, in the trembling of those who witnessed it. Night patrols encountered more anomalies. Tremors aligned with folklore. Footprints appeared in impossible configurations, some vanishing under the dunes. Heat readings spiked, then returned to baseline. Each incident echoed stories passed down for centuries. The scouts' diaries now read like a blend of field report and legend. Fact merging with folklore, reality merging with myth. The desert tested them, pushed them to the edge. One particularly chilling account describes a camel disappearing mid-trek, its screams fading into the distance. A scout followed the tracks, leading to a dune. Nothing. Sand undisturbed. Yet the camel was gone. The diary entry reads, "Impossible, yet undeniable. The tracks vanish. The desert claims its own. Fear rippled through the team, disbelief mingling with horror, each anomaly more incomprehensible than the last. The Algoi Korkoi seemed to toy with the scouts, appearing as ripples in the sand, shadows flickering, tremors coinciding with the pulse of fear. The desert itself became a predator, shaping reality to the creature's will. Nightmares crept into their waking hours. Scouts saw movements at the corner of their eyes, fleeting glimpses of red beneath the dunes, and vanished before comprehension. A diary note reads, "We set cameras, nothing recorded, instruments failed, yet the sand moved, an impossible ripple, as if something enormous slid beneath us. No eyes saw it, no lens captured it, only our minds know, and they scream." Panic turned to obsession. The scouts meticulously cataloged every anomaly, each tremor shadow vanish, reinforcing folklore, confirming dread. The desert held its secrets close. By the end of the third week, the expedition reached its peak of terror. Tents abandoned overnight. Scouts vanished briefly, reappearing disoriented. Heat anomalies spiking without cause. Footprints forming and disappearing. Camels dead. Bodies with precise puncture wounds. Scorched sand. No predator visible. Official reports would later describe the events as unexplained phenomena. High likelihood of environmental and psychological factors, yet no evidence of natural causation. The desert's climax culminated in a single night. Tremors shaking the dunes rhythmically, shadows rising along ridges, whispers louder, heat spikes aligning with folklore warnings. The team witnessed the impossible, shapes undulating beneath the sand, vanishing before instruments could record. Fear became tangible, every heartbeat synchronized with the desert's rhythm. The Algoi Korkoi had orchestrated a spectacle, a reminder of its dominance. As dawn approached, the desert returned to silence. Sand smooth, tracks gone, camels lost, tents undisturbed. Yet the memory remained, inscribed in scouts' minds. Journals trembling with entries, heat anomalies logged, tremors recorded, folklore confirmed, reality shattered. The Algoi Korkoi remained unseen, but undeniable, a force blending legend and fact. The desert had delivered its climax, leaving fear, questions, and an unending echo. The Gobi Desert settled into silence once more, dunes glinting under the early sun. Yet the scars of the expedition remained. Footprints, tremors, and heat anomalies etched into notebooks and memories. Scouts returned, but the desert had changed them. Eyes haunted by shadows, minds haunted by whispers. The Algoi Korkoi remained unseen, yet its presence lingered, a predator of legend and reality, waiting beneath the sands. Nomads continued to whisper of the worm, stories passed down, each tale a warning, each warning a lesson. The desert is patient. It observes. It remembers. Tremors still ripple through the dunes. Heat anomalies appear in patterns too consistent to ignore. Travelers report fleeting shadows, distant cries. Sometimes camels vanish. Sometimes explorers speak of impossible shapes moving beneath the sand. The legend persists, alive in memory, alive in observation. Files and diaries compiled by the scouts remain classified. Some anomalies were dismissed, others noted with caution. The desert's sentinel eluded documentation. Instruments captured little, yet every detail pointed to something. deliberate, intelligent. The Algoi Korkoi exists somewhere between myth and reality, a living echo, an enigma the desert refuses to reveal completely. Even decades later, researchers find patterns in historical reports, tremors and vanishings, strange footprints, scattered accounts of impossible encounters. Folklore aligns with evidence. Fact mirrors legend. The desert holds a history older than maps, older than the scouts' diaries. It is patient, waiting for the next expedition, the next observer, the next unwary traveler. Observers note the psychological imprint left by the desert, the fear, the fascination, the obsession. Scouts reported dreams mirroring legends, visions of red shapes beneath sand, whispers in the wind calling names, shadows that moved independently of light. The desert seems alive, aware. It tests those who enter, teaching lessons through fear and anomaly. Some say the Algoi Korkoi has never left. It waits, beneath the dunes, beneath time itself. Patterns repeat across regions. Siberian steppes, Mongolian sands. Legends align, anomalies recur. The sentinel endures, an unseen actor, orchestrating tremors, vanishings, and the pulse of fear. The desert watches and waits. The question remains, was the Algoi Korkoi ever fully observed, or does it exist only in the intersection of fear, folklore, and observation? Did the scouts glimpse something real, or were their senses deceived by isolation and exhaustion? Perhaps the desert itself is the creature, an intelligence older than human memory, shaping perception, shaping legend. Some nights travelers report sand shifting without wind, distant cries, shapes moving just beyond sight. Every story, every account, reinforces the possibility that the desert holds sentinels, patterns repeating, warnings echoing through time. The Algoi Korkoi persists, a riddle buried beneath the dunes, elusive, intelligent, alive, in memory, in fear, in legend. The desert remains a realm of unanswered questions. Tremors and anomalies continue. Footprints appear, then vanish. Shadows flicker beneath the sun. Unexplained heat rises. Camels vanish. Whispers echo, and explorers feel eyes upon them. The Algoi Korkoi, though unseen, leaves a mark, a lingering presence, an undeniable enigma. The desert does not forgive. It only observes. Perhaps one day, another expedition will encounter it, or perhaps it will remain a shadow, a ripple beneath the sand, a legend that refuses to die. Until then, the Gobi holds its secrets close. Tremors, vanishings, whispers, all part of a larger pattern, a motif older than history, older than memory, and far beyond comprehension. You have just witnessed another account from Echoes of the Unknown, a story where legend and fact intertwine, where the desert watches and the worm waits beneath the sands. If you wish to uncover more, to follow the echoes and shadows of the unexplained, subscribe and step carefully, for some deserts never release what they claim.